So in this video, I'm going to look at an Akai M9 reel-to-reel recorder, and this was brought in by a client. And maybe this should be a warning for what to look for when you're looking at a reel-to-reel and not fall into this situation, because this one is not pretty. One of my clients just brought me this Akai model M9 reel-to-reel for service, and well, I don't know whether this one's going to be salvageable or not. As you notice, it doesn't have spindles on here for the tape. I don't know whether they've been broken off or whether this is one that had alternate mounts put on it where it can only operate in a horizontal manner, which some people prefer to run their machines horizontal as opposed to vertical. This machine hasn't been plugged in yet by me. Looks like the pinch roller here is not in great shape, but let's see if this one can be salvaged. As you can see, the printing on here is all rubbed off. These weren't very well silk screened. It looks similar to my 1710, actually, from the actual. My 1710 had these little ears on the side to direct the sound out, which have been taken off on it, but they had these little metal flaps. And it looks like it had the same type of metal or same type of wood cover that you could, when there was no reels on it, cover it up. Looks very similar. My 1710 has the same type of pause, and it didn't have the button to release it, but it had, you pulled, right, to do that. Anyway, I don't know if this thing works or not. We're gonna check this one out. Hopefully we can save the patient, because otherwise my client got ripped off. He bought this online or through an online ad, and probably paid a little too much for it. But he may be taking home one of my Sonys if this one can't be repaired. But I told him, let me take a look at it and we'll see whether I can make this thing work. I don't even know what this control does. We'll figure that out. Let's start to disassemble this unit and see how bad it really is. It's got this big plate on the back that says patent pending and registered to the Akai model M9, and it's cross-field heads. Crossfield, for those unfamiliar with the term, is a second recording head, and it was also used on a lot of the Tandbergs, and Akai used it on some of their American sold machines under the Akai and the Roberts brand. And what crossfield is, it's a second recording head that's placed below the tape that applies the bias signal onto the back side of the tape. This is to ensure proper penetration to the deepest layer of the tape to improve the high frequency response, because normally on your recording head you've got your erase head and then you've got your record play head on a two-head machine, and you have to have sufficient bias current to penetrate the tape to deliver the signals, the bass signals, to the deepest layers of the tape while the treble rides along the surface. And due to that bias signal being relatively strong, you are in effect self-erasing the higher frequencies. It's more apparent at the lower speeds, but with the crossfield system, they put a second head below the tape to pre-bias that tape so that you didn't have to have a strong recording current to the actual head laying down the audio signal. The bias signal from below would ensure that the tape is properly printed, and because the signal is coming from the bottom side of the tape, that bias signal is not reaching the top surface where the high frequencies are recorded. And what it did was it allowed frequency responses up to 13 kilohertz on the slowest 1 7/8 tape speed. So that was the reason behind it. And it was on some, but not all, but some of the machines had this. I've never worked on one that has it, so this will be a new experience for me when we open the head assembly up here and take a look at it. If we look at this machine, we'll notice that it's got these big standoffs on the back, on the top side, which indicates to me that this machine was one that was used in a horizontal position, but these standoffs tilt the machine slightly up. So the machine would have been more than likely operated in this orientation. Now if we remove the screw here, we should be able to remove the bottom portion of the head assembly and take a look at the setup inside here. Okay, so here we go. So this is what they're talking about when they say a crossfield head. It has a second head that's on the bottom here. So when you put it into record, here's your erase head, here's your main record play head, and here's the crossfield head, which comes up from the bottom, and it's kind of not doing what it's supposed to, but I think this should pivot up and make contact with the tape to apply the bias signal to the bottom side. Now, I don't know what this dial is doing. It doesn't appear to be doing anything right now, whether it's broken or what, but anyway, as you can see, this unit is not in great shape. Don't know what any of these switches do either, because everything's worn off on here. It's like you've got record level down here, and playback, and tone, controls, volume, treble, flat. This must be, okay, you got bass and treble, or tone, and volume. Got two controls here. That one just turns forever. That's a record level control. But that seems to be a playback control that just kind of spins forever. Oh, this thing's not in good shape. This is ugly. Let's apply power to this thing and see if it does anything. So I've got it plugged in. I have no idea which one of these is the power switch. I think that's the power switch. Okay, motor's not turning. Oh, that amplifier sounds noisy. Like there's no motors, nothing. Motor's not turning. Oh, this is ugly. Okay, that lever is working as far as moving the tape away from the head, but that's record, I guess. Play. No, that's not even locking it. I can go into full record here. Record level. But what concerns me more than anything is that the motor's not spinning. So I got nothing, the caption's not turning here, and this is not moving either. And that amplifier is pretty noisy. Something else you may have noticed here is the head. Look at the groove on the head here. This head has a lot of miles on it. Like it's got a lot of wear on this head. Okay. You can see the groove that's worn into the head. This machine's had a lot of miles on it. Another cause for concern with this one is take a look at this. Like the chassis is loose. Like somebody's been into this thing. They haven't even put the screws back in properly. So after fiddle farting around with this thing for like ages to try and get the stupid knob off, I find that it's not even held in place by a set screw. Someone just kind of jammed that on there, and that's why it was stuck. Things are falling out of here. They just jammed this thing in place. Okay, this is the head assembly cover is now off, which will allow me to remove the front panel and take a look underneath the mechanism here. So you can't take this front panel off unless you can remove all the knobs. And the head assembly. At this point now I can undo the set screws and take these knobs off. See what damage is underneath here. I have a feeling that I'm going to find that the cams that control this are broken. Pinch roller is not moving at all, so that's a problem. This pinch roller is a problem itself, but that's the least of my concerns. The shape of the pinch roller, as you can see, it's a really tough shape. But that's, again, that's a low concern compared to everything else that appears to be wrong with this thing. I have a cat that's probably going to jump into the shot here in a second if I'm not careful. Start knocking stuff down. You can see how bad this is. So here's the flywheel, and it's not turning. This is part of the auto stop, and I think this lever is supposed to be around, this little spring is supposed to be around here on the back side of this thing. I can see this little spring is sitting free here. I think this is supposed to be hooked in behind here. Push this down like that. Yeah, that's what that does. Okay, well that's I mean, that cat, buzz off. Just want to see what the mechanism does here when I try changing the modes. So I'm just gonna put the controls back on. These Akais weren't the best as far as reliability went. You see that? That cam looks like it's probably broken. There's a cam right down here on this control. And it's probably broken. They have a lot of metal fatigue. When you turn this is supposed to move, this mechanism here. This is supposed to move like that and turn. I have a feeling that it's broken. Yeah, it is. That's what I was afraid of. How this works is you can actually see right down here, there's a piece that's missing off the front of the cam, which is similar to what's on this side, that moves this lever here, like this rocker. This one here is supposed to move. And when you turn it, that is supposed to go down like this. That's supposed to rotate with it and bring the pinch roller up when you go to record, play, and then down to record. And it's supposed to lock it until you push this button down here, which releases, there's a little metal clip, a little metal spring here. When you push this in, that releases a catch, which allows you to turn the control to the next step. But it's not moving the cam itself. It's not moving. That's because it's broken. You can see it. You see this piece here, I'm moving. This piece here is broken. That's the piece right there. This is supposed to be part, this lever here, this is supposed to be part of this shaft. When you turn this is all supposed to rotate. But what's happened is the bottom portion of the cam itself, it's like an aluminum cast piece of shit metal. The metal fatigue gets to these machines and breaks that, and that, of course, because this is under high stress. The one for rewind here and fast forward, as you can see, this one's working okay. As you can see, if I move this one, you can see it's engaging the tires into the motor, which is supposed to be turning, but it's not, because this thing has a problem. Motor's not even attempting to turn. But when you put it into rewind, that should be turning this way like this, right? And then so the motor turns counterclockwise, and when you put it into fast forward, the motor continuing to turn will drive this reel. And when you put it into play, well, this is supposed to turn this cam. And what this cam does is when you turn it to play, the cam is supposed to rotate this direction to raise your pinch roller up. Oh, now the motor decides it's going to come on. Yeah, okay. Maybe the switch. I think the speed switch has got a problem. Now the motor's going to come on. It's the speed switch. There's the problem with the motor. You can see that when I press on the switch, the motor comes on. So now if I go into rewind, that works. The problem is this cam is broken. It's pieces of it are missing. Here's some of it right here. You see? See what I mean? It's just where the screw holds it in place. It's and there's some more of it right here. I can pick some more of it out. Here's some more pieces of it here. See the screws here. This cam is buggered up. This one's probably, oh cool. That's going to be the auto shut off. So when I raise this lever up, the motor should come on. I think. See what that does? You know, that's stuck in forward. When the this switch here, so when the tape gets to the end and the tape drops, that's supposed to shut that off. Anyway. I don't know why that's still driving there. Ooh, that switch got a shock there. That switch is kind of fucked up. That switch is shot. I didn't really get a shock. I just said that. I'm on an isolation transformer, so I can't get a shock, but I can feel that the chassis is live. I can feel the hum of AC from that bad switch. Anyway, I'm going to break the news to the owner of this one that this one here I think is going to be a lost cause. The chances of finding that piece to repair that is, I think we're probably going to guess it's probably next to impossible to find that piece. This is the pause lever. Anyway, this unit is beyond repair. I'm condemning this unit. But this particular phenomenon that we see here, this is real common on all of these old Akai units. All the old Roberts and all the old Akai of this vintage. And my 1710 is the same boat. Mine hasn't broken yet, but mine has gotten to the point where normally when you put it into like play, you can't, it locks out the other control. So you can't put it into fast forward or rewind at the same time, because when you put it into play, it moves a slider over that locks the other control. That piece on my old 1710 is broken. So it would be possible to put it into rewind while it's playing. And, well, you know what's going to happen to the tape if you do that. It's going to destroy the tape. Again, it's the same thing. It's metal fatigue on it that is causing that failure. Very common problem on these Akai units. So you know, if you're looking at buying an old reel-to-reel, I would advise to stay clear of these Akai machines that have the dual controls. Even the 4000 that I've got, I don't know how much better it is. It's newer, so I don't think it has the same issues that these old ones did. But these ones here, they had a lot of issues with this particular problem. And when this happens, the cost to repair one of these things, you basically would have to get a piece like that machined for it. I'm not saying it's impossible to fix something like this. You know, anything's possible to fix if you can get a part made that will do the job. But to get a metal part like this machined to replace that, cost-wise, it's really not economical. Plus the other problems that this has, we heard the noise in the amplifier. It's got a lot of crackling and hissing in it. The amplifier doesn't seem to be sounding very good, and the fact that the switch up here is kind of foobar. You can see that switch is shot. I'm gonna let the guy that owns this one, maybe he can go back to the guy he bought it from and try and get his money back. But I would say that looking at this one from the state it's in, that this one is not going to be one that someone wants to sink a lot of money into. Especially since the fact that you have to run it horizontal, because either someone's changed these tables to a low profile table, or they've been broken off. See, if it's lying flat, in theory, you could put the spindles on there and they would stay on, right? If it's lying flat. But you're not going to have a spindle on here with this deck standing up, because it's going to fall off. So I don't know whether these were aftermarket, designed for low profile, you know, so the spindle could just sit there like that on it, or whether they actually were broken. But they're both like this, so I have a feeling that maybe these were low profile hubs that somebody fitted on here for unknown reason. I can't see it speeding up the process of changing the tape. I can tell you that much, because it's certainly not any easier to put those spools on, other than the fact that they don't have the shaft sticking up. But oh well. I'm gonna throw this one together, send this one on its way. This one's not worth putting effort in. I know I'm gonna get people that are gonna say that I'm washing my hands of it, and that I'm not trying hard enough. But realistically, and I'm being realistic here, this is one where I can confidently say this one is not worth fixing. We'll catch you in the next one real soon.